I think when you think about reading people, and when you think about how important it is in the aspects of all our lives really, whether you're in a meeting situation or whether you're actually just in a business situation, a sales situation, it really, really is very important. We're very lucky to have a guy with us today, a guy called John Cremer, who some of you met at dinner last night. John was the speaker for the decade for the Academy for Chief Executives. He's spoken all over the world to organisations such as the UN and businesses such as Microsoft. His specialised subject is reading people, and for the last 10 years he's been engaging people that want to enlighten themselves on these particular aspects of communication. So please give a really warm welcome to our guest speaker this morning, Mr. John Cremer.
When I meet someone, I want to know something about them quickly, and I want to know something about them deeply. And I've been working with a system for about 28 years that has helped me to do that. And I'm going to give you a rapid tour of this system today. It's as quick as just looking at them and running up and down a checklist of what you're seeing. It gives you a surprising insight into something that's ticking away inside them, their default position. And if you get a sense of someone's type and their default position, you can avoid conflict and you can create rapport very quickly, which means your communication, your conversations are effective and purposeful. There's 6 different types. I'm going to give you very extreme and exaggerated examples of each type, and I'm going to show you lots of pictures of them. I'll ask you a few questions, and if you feel like it, we'll look for some specimens in the room, which is where it gets to be fun. Paradoxically, the easiest way to build trust with a Mars person is to say, I was wrong. If you say, I was wrong, they will trust you more if you take responsibility for your actions. If you try to fudge or cover something up, they get really annoyed. This is the god of war. They quite like a fight. So if you're not a Mars and you avoid conflict and you find you're having a bit of conflict with a Mars, whether they're a friend or a client or a colleague, that's totally fine. If you have a good old fight, excellent, they'll trust you more. It's almost like they want to see how strong you are. They want to see if you'll push back and then they can trust you. If you don't push back, if you sort of go, well, I can see your point, and they're like, you know? Who has a Mars in their life outside of this room? Who is involved with a Mars? Who do you have in your life that's a Mars? You're married to a Mars. They love clear targets. You've got a Mars on your team, give them a clear target. When they hit their target, reward them. If you don't reward them immediately, you're the target. Famous ones.
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay, yes. Most celebrity chefs are Mars. You think about it, there's heat, there's knives, there's alcohol, you've got to do things in a hurry, you get to swear and shout. You know, just go through most of the celebrity chefs, they're Mars people. I like to watch a Mars with an iPad. This is my impersonation of a Mars with an iPad. It's like, I press send, it hasn't sent. I've waited 3 seconds, it still hasn't sent. I know what to do, I'll press harder. And if that doesn't work, I'll press harder and repeatedly, and if that doesn't work, I'll threaten the technology. Because it's now... Anyone think they're the most obviously Mars person in this room? You want to raise your hand so we can have a look at you? Just for fun or not? We don't have to pick on people. Yes? Do you want to stand just for a second? So we just have a quick look at you. So what's your name? Andy, yeah, you're pretty... He's cornered the market, hasn't he? Questions, comments, ready for that? Yes?
Are you always only one type?
Great question. You're a combination of 2, but they're next to each other on the circle. Yeah, so are you asking about yourself?
Not particularly, I'm just interested to... I mean, if you're Mars, are you Mars and that's it?
Not 100%, no, yeah, not 100%. Andy's about 95% Mars. Yeah, but you can be 50-50. But it's always I'll tell you what I'll do is, just to make this more simple, here's the next place on the circle. The next type is a jovial. So you can be between Mars and jovial. And you can be really close to Mars, just a bit jovial, or you can be really close to jovial, just a bit Mars. So it's like a dial. Now, jovials tend to be large. Physically, mentally, and emotionally, they are large. There are two types in this system that tend to carry a bit of weight, and they naturally carry a bit of weight. It's just natural to them. We've got this whole thing in our culture that you should be a certain way, you should be a certain weight and height. And I would say that certain types of people, certain types, are just naturally larger, and it's actually, that's how they're built. So when a jovial walks into a room, it's as if royalty has arrived. So jovials will walk into a room, and they like to make a sweeping entrance, and it's like, excuse me. Hello everybody, I've arrived, I'm here. Hello. I know things were a little dull up until now, but I'm here. So things are going to be much more interesting. Let me tell you about me, shall I? Shall I tell you about me? And they've got this marvellous confidence and this charisma that draws people with them. Ideally, they would have an entourage that follows them. And in their mind, ideally, when they walk into a room, someone would open the door for them and they would hand their cloak to an attendant who would hang it up. If you are engaged with a jovial, they have a very, very great weakness, which is flattery. If you flatter and compliment a jovial, you can get anything from them. You can watch them enlarge before your eyes as you lay the flattery on thick with a trowel and then ask them for something, and they're like, well, of course. They can also be a little bit sniffy and vengeful. And if you displease them, they will cast you forth from the kingdom. And they will not want your name to be mentioned in their presence. What's your name, please?
Josh.
Josh. Let's imagine I'm a jovial, and Josh is a friend of mine, but he has slightly displeased me. This is what I would do as a jovial. I would say, I'm having a party, everybody, at my house. It's going to be fabulous. Almost everyone's going to be there. Unfortunately, Josh is too busy for little people like me, so I won't be inviting Josh. If you could let Josh know how much fun you had at the party, that would be great. Who has a jovial in their life? Who's going, oh, well, yes?
Adam Turk.
Things get a lot quieter now. Luna. Luna, or Diana, is the moon goddess, goddess of secrecy, hunting, and the night. Your archetypal Luna looks like this. They have a roundish face and a small chin. They tend to be slender. If they're male, they were unlikely to have been picked for the rugby team. If they're female, they very often have a sort of delicate, fragile beauty to them. And when a Luna walks into a room, they're really easy to spot because they don't like people looking at them. This is the goddess of secrecy. So when a Luna walks into a room, if there's people there already, they're horrified. Luna people have an astonishing attention to detail. If you're engaged with a Luna client and they're asking you lots of nitpicky questions and it's driving you mad because you're a Mars, keep going. You're getting there. Luna people like to know exactly what's what. They like to know the structure of things. They like to know what's your place, what's my place. They like to work in their own space. They do not like you to disturb them. If you want to have a bit of fun with a Luna, have a chat. While you're chatting to them in their space, just move something on their desk, just a little tiny bit. Just a centimetre, just a tiny... And you can watch, it doesn't go there. And something that's really useful to recognise is when a Luna says no to you, walk away. Don't push them. It's like trying to push a snail or a tortoise. When they've gone inside their shell, don't knock on the shell. Back away, leave them alone. You are just wasting your time and making things unpleasant for them. When a Luna says no, walk away, because they will win. With a Luna, you can win a battle, but you'll lose the war, because they're more patient than you are, and they'll get you in the end. Your archetypal Venus has dark hair, soft skin, big eyes, big lips, and they are sensual people, and they tend to carry an extra bit of weight. When a Venus shows up, they're probably late, because these are the slowest moving of all the types. So Venus people just sort of wander along to where they're going, and at some point they may glance down at their watch and realise it's 9:30 and they should have been there at 9. In which case, may as well slow down. Venus people love to nurture and support people, bring them along. I'm just going to simplify this conversation here with a Venus, and I've tried this, and don't believe anything I tell you, experiment for yourself. There's one word you need to learn and use when you're talking to a Venus, and that is the word we. If you use the word we in a conversation, they are with you. If you use the word I and you mentally separate from them in their experience. It sounds absolutely weird, but if you say to a Venus, the team is going to be moving in this direction and we're going to be doing this, they're on board. If you say to a Venus, I think you should do this, they feel separated out and uncomfortable. When I first started presenting this material, I used to be really evangelical. I was like on a mission to like convince the world that this was how it really was. And what I noticed was I was compelled to argue with people. And when I argued with people, they would argue back using their type. So I might say to someone, I think you're a Mars, and they'd be like, I'm not. And we would get into this. We'd both get really Mars and combative. So a Mars would fight to prove they're not a Mars. Whereas a Jovial would be like, you don't know the real me, you peasant. Mercury, things speed up a little bit now. Your archetypal Mercury has flashing eyes, good cheekbones, and a wiry physique. Mercuries are built for speed and action. Mercuries believe that rules are for the thick people. They like to find their way around the rules. They like to look for the loopholes. They like to duck and dive a little bit. If all the Mercuries took a week off, nothing would move. The economy would just grind to a halt. At their best, Mercuries are inspiring. They find new possibilities, they make connections between people, and they synergise and make things happen. At their worst, Mercuries are devious and expedient. It doesn't matter what business we're all in the business of attention. If you can put your client's attention where you want it to be, you can make a deal. If your client's attention isn't where you want it, you can't make a deal. It's that simple. Right now, I'm working with your attention. You're deciding to give your attention to this because you think it's worth it. If you don't think it's worth it, your attention will go somewhere else. The phones will come out, you'll find a reason to be out of the room. Attention. Energy and money follows attention. And Mercuries are the masters at working attention. Watch a Mercury when they're by themselves and no one's looking at them. And they'll be walking along and suddenly they'll realise that someone's looking at them. It's like there's a click. You can hear the smile turn on. And it's that dazzling smile. Charm. Saturns, physically, are 6 feet tall or thereabouts. They have long bones, long arms and legs, and a long, narrow face. And when a Saturn walks into a room, it feels as if Dad has shown up. Whether they are male or female, Saturns have an innate ability to just look down at people. Famous ones. John Cleese. Yeah. Rises into town, doesn't say much, kills the bad guy. Next film, please. When you're doing business with a Saturn, it has to make sense. At a subconscious level, they want to know you've done your homework. Killer tip. You can't use this one very often, but if you want to make a Saturn, get a Saturn on your side, this is something that is irresistible to them. Ask for their advice. Say, can I have your advice, please? And you just watch them become taller and recognise that you have seen their intellectual genius and that you're willing to ask advice. And you've positioned yourself in a role that they cannot resist, which is, please tell me what to do, because you know more than me. Makes them delighted. There's all the types. Let me just take a little journey here. pick, let's say someone is born here, between Saturn and Mars. So they're going to be quite driven, they're going to be quite direct, they're going to be a little bit removed and aloof. This is the sort of Ubermensch, you know, the Nordic type. If someone's born here, it might work perfectly well for them. So that's their hardware. They may then decide, actually, I want a change of career, I want my life to be different, and they may learn some techniques and tools that make them more emotionally available. They may learn to embrace emotional intelligence, communication skills. So they acquire some software that softens the edges of being a Saturn Mars, but they're still a Saturn Mars. Under stress, they're still going to get the Mars temper and the Saturn judgment. You know, a Venus might learn assertiveness. They might learn to be more assertive, to stand up for themselves. But on a weekend, they're going to turn to jelly in front of a television. They're going to revert back. Make sense? Hardware, software. And when we're aware of ourselves, when we're aware of our own hardware, we can make the best of the qualities that we have innately, and we can also mitigate some of the areas that don't naturally work when it comes to engaging with other people. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much indeed.